Less is more is one of his great sayings. Keep it simple, and the best one is the best is yet to come.
He's most famous for starting the integration of the consolidation of the oil majors with the purchase of Amoco and then Arco, which then led on to further consolidation with ExxonMobil and so on.
He's amazingly long-term in his thinking, quite inspired, and he triggered one of the great consolidations of world industry back in 1998, 1999, bringing together two big American companies and several European companies, Weber, Castrol, Amoco, and Arco, BP, and created one of the world's truly leading energy companies in terms of size and scale. And it changed the industry forever, because right after that, other companies began the same consolidation wave. So while people think there's lots and lots of oil companies, there's a lot less than there was 20 years ago, and he's really the inspiration for it.
So I think leaders, in my book, when I reflect on what they do two things which are really important. Number one is they talk about and really believe in the purpose of what they're leading, whether it's a company or an organization. They believe in the purpose, and they talk about the purpose, and they make sure everything that is done is aligned to that purpose. And the purpose includes, obviously, the values which the organization works in. So I think only the leader can do that and make sure that people understand what's going on by testing it. Secondly, leaders can't work without great teams, and teams need to be engaged, which means that the second thing I believe leaders need to do is to work on inclusion the whole time, testing that their organization is a place which includes everybody. Therefore, you get a great engagement of the team, you get diversity of thought, you get access to the best people. And those two things leaders need to focus on.
So John was, I think, really, truly the first great leader in the oil and gas industry to begin to acknowledge climate change was an issue. So back in 1997, he gave a very famous speech, about 20 years ago, in fact, that acknowledged this as an issue, and our industry needed to pay more attention to it. And not just kicking off some research projects, he began a deep investment program by BP in areas such as biofuels, wind, hydrogen, solar. And while some of those businesses have had a tough time through the years and the ups and downs of BP, we still have today two great businesses that came out of that. Biofuels in Brazil, a big wind business in the United States, and about 7,000 people today working on renewable energy along with our oil and gas business. Something he always thought was possible, that the objective would be to reduce emissions, not turn everything into renewables, because that's a really hard thing to power the world with. But he was truly a leader that changed, again, our industry.
It's not about him. It's actually about how he can bring on others. He had this incredible system of developing people that he'd spotted in BP. So it's seriously about bringing on the next generation of leaders.
I think he's quite exceptional at identifying and building talented people. At BP, for example, there's an incredible collection of brilliant people, all of whom have gone on to do great things either inside BP or outside BP. And if you talk to all of them, they would all say that the common factor and the biggest influence on them was John Browne.
Well, John is an extremely analytic person, very organized, a very good business person, and thinks very strategically.
I think his breadth of knowledge and ability to apply that knowledge to very complex situations. So he's not just a simple engineer or physicist. He understands politics, he understands the world the industry is working in, and can put it all together and create a great strategy out of that.
I mean, everybody knows what a brilliant businessman he has been. But he's a human being with a great range of influences and interests. And of course, more recently, he's just done incredible things in relation to LGBT.
John leaves a great tradition in BP today, for his spirit of diversity and inclusion, and diversity in all forms of diversity, including nationalities and people, the spirits of bringing people from all over the world. The kind of leadership today reflects and maps the world we're in. He's pushed us, always did, on gender diversity, sexual preferences. I think all of that, I think he would find all alive and well at BP today, the consciousness towards diversity and inclusion. I do trace it back to John.
So LGBT inclusiveness in business is part of a wider push that I believe everyone in business has to consider, and that's inclusion. And by inclusion I mean creating the environment in which people can be themselves and succeed based on their merit. Whether that is to do with their sexuality, they shouldn't hide it if they don't want to, whether it's gender, why aren't there 50% of all CEOs being women? 50% of the population is women. Why are there appears to be only one openly gay CEO in the S&P 500, and that's Tim Cook of Apple. So these are things which require a lot of push. And it's not just because it's right, it's also good for business. There are clear studies that show that if you can engage everyone in a business to the purpose of the business, and they feel that they can be valued for what they do, rather than simply the colour of their skin or their gender or their sexuality, then they engage as a team, and engagement creates a better result. In fact, studies show that profits go up by 2% a year, which is a lot if you get a really engaged team. To be engaged, you have to include everybody. And I believe very firmly and very strongly that that has to be done. Now, to include people, you need to make sure you watch this the whole time. There is no room for even any slight bigotry. It can't be excused, it must be removed. We cannot allow people to feel threatened. They have to feel safe, and they will perform really well.
Why has John been successful? I think it's obvious. It's his curiosity, it's his brilliance, it's his drive, it's his vision, his ability to connect with people, employees, managers, governments, officials, a remarkable ability to connect with people. And he wrote a book called Connect, and in a funny way, I think that actually captures John as well as any intellectual idea. He has a quite remarkable ability to connect with people, with ideas and with trends, and that to me explains his extraordinary success, as well as, of course, his just sheer resilience.
He really knew what he was doing. He was passionate about the oil and gas industry and the world's energy and the problems of the world. He just really paid attention to the details. He recognized the importance of relationships around the world. I think those qualities all put together are just critical for the success that John had. And he was able to lead an organization to do really big things.
Well, he's talented, hardworking, courageous, and he has really exacting standards. And he has the ability to make everybody else around him, everybody who works for him, want to meet those exacting standards.
Well, I was very proud on behalf of BP to make a speech over 20 years ago at Stanford University, which said that the oil and gas industry had to be accountable for the effects of climate change. What was being produced was definitely changing the climate, and we had to do something about it. So we started, and I'm very proud of that, we started a long journey into renewable energy. It's moving ahead in a much faster way now, and it's creating a real choice for people in the way in which electricity is generated.
But probably more importantly today, all that knowledge that the company learned and the research work that was done and started back then, I think BP has as broad a knowledge of people about the low carbon transition and the energy that it's going to take to power the world going forward as any company in the world, and that's a great legacy for him.
Behind every business person as a human being, and John is a very, very human person. I had two characteristics I've always warmed to about John as a person, somebody I really, really admire and like. Firstly, he's very kind. It's not a word that people use much, certainly not about business people or bankers, but he is noticeably very kind, and I've seen numerous instances where he did things that were just incredibly nice and he didn't need to do, and he never talked about it. So that's one characteristic which I find extremely appealing. And then perhaps linked to that, he is deep humanity. He is very interested in the human condition. He does a lot, he tries to contribute to it, not just around the arts, but he is genuinely interested in what I call the human condition. So if I had to pick two particularly attractive personal characteristics, at least to me, it would be his kindness and his humanity.
Because again, everyone who knows about him knows that he's obsessed with, just looking perfect. He's terribly, he has his cuffs just right. Everything is just right, and even round the swimming pool, he's got the best short.